5:17 local time, North Atlantic. Subsurface contact bearing 087, speed 5 knots, depth 180 feet. The voice comes through calm and precise, stripped of emotion, nothing but raw information. Inside the Combat Information Center aboard USS George H.W. Bush, monitors glow under dim red light. Flight operations had only just paused between recovery cycles. Out on deck, yellow shirts freeze for the briefest moment as the message moves through internal comms. Contact. No one asked where it came from. That part is irrelevant for now. 5 knots is slow, intentional, controlled. First step, classify it. Across the strike group, the escorting destroyer USS gravely shifts 2 degrees to starboard, quietly and without ceremony. Nothing is announced to the flight deck. The carrier holds its heading. Even so, the formation draws tighter, almost too subtly to notice. 5:18. The contact increases speed to 7 knots. Course steady. Closing. On the sonar display, the waterfall becomes cleaner. Ocean background noise peels away from a mechanical rhythm underneath. Propeller blade count starts to emerge. The cavitation pattern doesn't fit commercial traffic. Then comes the assessment. Possible kilo-class derivative. Russian origin. No one says the word danger. They do not need to. Condition 3 moves to Condition 2 across the strike group, and it happens with practiced silence. Crews shift. Hatches are secured. The air wing remains overhead, holding position. 5:19. The contact accelerates again. 12 knots. That is no longer simple transit speed. That is maneuvering speed. A projected closest point of approach appears on the tactical screen. 3.8 nautical miles. Time to CPA, 14 minutes. The carrier does not turn. Recommend active confirmation, Gravely's sonar supervisor advises. Approved. A single active ping rolls out into the Atlantic. The return comes back instantly. Solid, metallic. The submarine does not alter course. 5:20. Contact now 15 knots. Faster. On Bush's bridge, the captain studies the repeater screen. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't even lean forward. He simply says, maintain posture, log everything. The strike group compresses by another half mile. Quiet geometry. Destroyers slide into better shielding positions along the carrier's flanks without advertising intent. 5:21. Depth change. Contact rising to 150 feet. Periscope depth approaching. A kilo-class submarine is built for stealth. Running shallow while picking up speed is not stealth. It is visibility. It is a signal. 5:22. Speed now 18 knots. That crosses into sustained flank territory for an underwater approach. Projected CPA drops to 2.9 nautical miles. Time to CPA, 10 minutes. Gravely brings up her MH-60R Seahawk. Rotor blades cut into the cold Atlantic air. Sonobuoys are prepared, though not yet released. This is presence, not pursuit. 5:23. The submarine climbs again, 110 feet. That depth improves targeting geometry. From this range and speed, if anything were initiated, the timeline would be counted in minutes. Still, the carrier does not turn. 5:24. CPA now 2.2 nautical miles. Active sonar continues. Ping, return, ping, return. The submarine does not break away. 5:25. Contact at 22 knots. Its acoustic signature grows stronger through the water column. Inside the submarine, engineers are clearly pushing the plant harder now. Noise patterns spike. In CIC, calculations refresh in real time. Defensive systems come online in silence. No klaxons, no shouting, only procedure. 5:26. Depth 95 feet. Periscope depth confirmed. Optical sensors aboard the Seahawk sweep the surface. No visible mast yet. But at that depth, the submarine commander can see the carrier, and the carrier knows it. 5:27. CPA 1.4 nautical miles. Time to CPA, 6 minutes. The geometry now looks less like a parallel track and more like an intercept. Recommend evasive course for carrier, a tactical officer says. The response comes immediately. Negative. Maintain course. A U.S. carrier does not give up the center line without reason. 5:28. Contact 25 knots. Flank confirmed. This is the closest point to decision. If an action were coming, this is where it would begin. Gravely increases the tempo of active pings. The Atlantic answers back with hard metallic clarity. We see you. 5:29. Silence. No launch transient. No bay noise. No abrupt cavitation burst to suggest tube flooding. Instead, the contact starts reducing speed, now 21 knots. A subtle change, but unmistakable. 5:30. Heading change detected. 4 degrees starboard. CPA begins to widen. 1.3, 1.5. The submarine slips off the direct intercept line. No shot, no flare, no radio traffic, just a curved path on a glowing tactical display. By 5:31, projected CPA extends beyond 2 nautical miles. Speed falls to 18 knots. Depth increases gradually past 120 feet. The Seahawk remains overhead, recording everything. On Bush's bridge, no one celebrates. No one eases up. The contact is still there. But the line has been tested and held. 5:32 local time. Subsurface contact steady. Bearing 091. Range 6.8 nautical miles. The Russian submarine has opened slightly off the carrier's bow, but it has not left. Now it is pacing the formation. Parallel. Close enough to matter. Speed 18 knots. Depth 120 feet. Not stealth, not withdrawal, deliberate presence. Inside USS Gravely's Combat Information Center, acoustic analysts isolate the blade rate once more. 6-blade screw, narrow harmonic band. Consistent with an improved Kylo variant. Diesel electric. The data is logged, time-stamped, archived. 5:33. Contact increasing speed, 21 knots. The submarine angles inward again only 3 degrees, but enough to alter the geometry. CPA tightens back below 2 nautical miles. That is not random drift. That is a correction. On the bridge of USS George H.W. Bush, the captain shows no reaction. The carrier stays on base course and speed. Flight operations remain paused, but still no alarms sound. 5:34. Gravely deploys sonobuoy pattern Alpha. The MH-60R Seahawk banks low and drops the first buoy. It strikes the Atlantic and begins transmitting at once. A second follows, then a third. A triangular grid takes shape across the submarine's projected track. Triangulation improves. Confidence rises. The acoustic picture sharpens. Every cavitation ripple. Every shaft rotation. 5:35. Contact now 24 knots. Sustained flank speed. A diesel-electric boat moving that fast underwater burns through stored power quickly. Batteries do not last long at that pace, which means this maneuver is running on a timer. 5:36. Depth shift. Contact climbing to 80 feet. That depth gives cleaner sensor returns. It also leaves the hull more exposed to detection from the Seahawk's dipping sonar overhead. The submarine commander knows that and continues anyway. 5:37. CPA projected at 1.1 nautical miles. Time to CPA, 4 minutes. Inside CIC, countermeasure systems move from standby to ready. Acoustic decoys are prepared. Soft kill solutions are calculated. No one says the word launch. They prepare as if it could happen anyway. 5:38. Active sonar pings quicken. Ping, return, ping, return. The Atlantic has become a conversation. The contact holds intercept geometry. Its track now aligns almost perfectly across the carrier's bow. If this were a firing exercise, it would be textbook positioning. 5:39. The carrier finally moves. 2 degrees to port. It is not a dramatic turn, only the smallest correction, but enough to disrupt the submarine's firing solution if it plans to keep pressing in. A statement made without a single word. 5:40. Contact speed drops to 20 knots. A flicker crosses the display. Depth now 70 feet. The submarine is shallow, very shallow. Periscope depth is within reach. Above, the Seahawk descends to 200 feet and switches on forward-looking infrared. No mast is visible yet, but faint thermal distortion ripples along the waterline. 5:41. CPA now 0.9 nautical miles, under 1 mile. At sea, that is close enough that if both ships were surfaced, hull plating would be visible. Underwater, it is closer than that. It is intimate. Inside Gravely's CIC, a weapons officer says quietly, "If tube flood detected, recommend immediate counter." The captain answers with a single nod. 5:42. The moment. Acoustic operators listen for the unmistakable signature of torpedo tube flooding. A rush of water, a pressure shift, the impulse of launch. Nothing. Instead, the contact turns starboard by 12 degrees. On the display, the line bends. Speed drops to 18 knots, then 16. CPA begins to open again. 1.2, 1.5. The intercept geometry falls apart. 0543. Depth increasing to 110 feet. The submarine slips beneath the thermocline. Acoustic return softens slightly as it descends into colder water. The Seahawk circles once, holding the track and recording everything. No launch, no emergency maneuver, no escalation. 5:44. The Russian boat steadies once more on a parallel course, now offset safely beyond 2 nautical miles. Speed 15 knots. No further attempt to close. Inside CIC, posture stays rigid. No one loosens up yet. The strike group maintains formation. 5:45. Contact descending to 150 feet. The submarine is pulling away, but not running. Controlled descent. Controlled speed. Gravely sends one final active ping. The return is faint but unmistakable. We still see you. 5:46. Range 3 nautical miles. Increasing. The Seahawk climbs to 500 feet and begins a slow orbit back toward the destroyer. On Bush's bridge, flight operations resume. Yellow shirts move again. Catapults hiss as systems cycle back to readiness. Routine comes back, but nobody mistakes what just happened. A $43 million Russian submarine accelerated at flank speed straight toward a U.S. aircraft carrier entered lethal envelope range, and then, at less than 1 nautical mile, broke away. No shots, no torpedoes, but the line was tested and it held. 5:47 local time. Subsurface contact steady, bearing 095, range 2.6 nautical miles, depth 150 feet. The Russian submarine has not disappeared. It has simply repositioned, parallel track, same general vector as the strike group, close enough to matter, far enough to avoid immediate attack geometry. Inside USS Gravely's Combat Information Center, acoustic operators remain on passive contact. Active pings stop. The Atlantic goes quiet. Now it becomes a contest of listening. 5:48, contact speed 14 knots, reduced from flank, conserving battery power. A diesel-electric submarine cannot sprint forever. After a high-speed run, silence becomes survival. The Seahawk tightens its orbit overhead. Dipping sonar lowers briefly into the water with a controlled splash. Data streams instantly back to Gravely's consoles. Contact confirmed. No additional contacts nearby. That matters. 1 submarine is pressure. 2 submarines would be a trap. 5:49. The submarine shifts depth again, 120 feet, a slight climb, enough to stay inside a favorable acoustic layer. The strike group compresses by less than half a mile. Civilian traffic would never notice it. Open-source trackers would not reveal it. But it is deliberate. On the bridge of USS George H.W. Bush, the captain studies the tactical display without comment. No course change now, no signal flags, no radio calls. At sea, silence often speaks louder than language. 5:50. Contact altering heading 3 degrees to port. A subtle inward lean. Tactical calculations update. CPA 2.1 nautical miles. The submarine is testing again. Not for a firing lane this time, but for reaction. Gravely gives it none. No new ping. No maneuver. Passive tracking continues. 5:51. Periscope breach detected. The Seahawk's electro-optical feed captures a thin metallic mast breaking the surface for less than 2 seconds before disappearing again. Time-stamped. Geo-referenced. Stored. The Russian commander wanted visual confirmation. He got it. 5:52. 2 FA-18 Super Hornets launch from Bush, not configured for anti-submarine work. Air-to-air loadout only. They climb into combat air patrol at 5,000 feet above the formation. The move is visible, not tactically necessary here, but unmistakable. 5:53. Contact speed steady at 13 knots. The submarine holds depth, holds course. This is no longer an intercept. Now it is shadowing. 5:54. Distance opens slightly, 2.5 nautical miles. Gravely shifts 1 degree to starboard, just enough to create more buffer without signaling withdrawal. The Seahawk makes 1 low pass offset from the submarine's last known position. Rotor wash tears across the Atlantic surface in a deliberate sweep. A reminder. 5:55. Contact descending to 180 feet. The submarine begins dropping below the thermocline again. Acoustic returns soften as it slips into colder, denser water. Passive sensors work harder to keep the picture clear. 5:56. Range 3 nautical miles. Speed 12 knots. No further heading changes. The Russian boat is easing off, not fleeing, withdrawing. 5:57. Active sonar remains silent. There is no need to provoke the moment any further. The strike group has kept its composure, held formation, and stayed in control. That is the message. 5:58. Contact depth 220 feet. The signature fades, still trackable but no longer immediate. Flight operations aboard Bush settle back into rhythm, arresting gear cycles. Deck crews move with rehearsed precision. The Atlantic wind resumes its ordinary sound against steel. 5:59. Range 4 nautical miles, increasing. The submarine's acoustic footprint slowly merges with the ocean's background noise. One last blade rate confirmation appears on Gravely's screen before the trace weakens beyond high-confidence classification. 6 o'clock, contact now, 5 nautical miles. Depth 300 feet, fading. The Seahawk climbs to transit altitude and heads back toward Gravely's deck. Dipping sonar retracts. Sonobuoy transmissions send their final returns before shutting down. No weapon release, no collision course completed, no emergency turn required. But for 13 minutes, a Russian submarine ran directly at a United States aircraft carrier at flank speed, entered lethal envelope range, and then chose not to cross the final line. 0602, contact lost. Bearing 098, last known depth 320 feet. The display clears, only blue water remains. Inside CIC, there is no applause and no visible release of tension, only data handling. Acoustic files are copied, signature profiles are archived, flank speed cavitation patterns are isolated for future recognition. Because the next time that blade rate appears on a sonar waterfall, there will be no uncertainty. On Bush's bridge, the captain takes one last look at the now clear tactical screen. Resume normal operations. The strike group stays on course. The Atlantic looks calm, but every sailor aboard knows exactly how close the moment came. 6:05 local time. Subsurface contact reacquired, bearing 102, range 6.3 nautical miles, depth 350 feet. The Russian submarine did not disappear. It had repositioned deeper. Aboard USS Gravely, passive tracking resumes. No active sonar now. The Atlantic falls quiet once more. Every operator leans into the headset, separating a faint mechanical rhythm from the background noise of the sea. Blade rate confirms it. Same hull, same submarine. 6:07. Contact speed 10 knots. Battery saving mode, a tactical withdrawal. The submarine is opening distance from the carrier strike group, but not in any way that looks rushed or careless. Every move feels measured. Professional, 6:08. On the bridge of USS George H.W. Bush, flight operations return to full tempo, and E-2D Hawkeye circles overhead. FA-18S move through launch and recovery cycles. From a distance, everything looks routine. Inside CIC, nothing is treated as routine. Every second of the intercept is being documented. Every speed change, every depth shift, every heading correction. Time-stamped, logged, preserved, 6:10, contact descending another 40 feet. Below the thermocline, acoustic clarity drops again. Tracking confidence narrows from high to moderate. Gravely holds passive contact. No pursuit course is ordered. The strike group does not chase. It stays on mission. 6:12, range 8 nautical miles. Increasing. The Russian submarine is no longer pacing in parallel. Its heading opens 5 degrees to starboard. Not dramatic, but decisive. Disengagement geometry confirmed. 6:14. Inside CIC, intelligence specialists begin their first review. The flank speed cavitation profile is isolated and compared against existing acoustic libraries. Harmonic bands are checked against earlier North Atlantic encounters. This is not theater. It is pattern recognition. The moment the submarine accelerated to 25 knots at shallow depth, it revealed more than it likely intended. High-speed acoustic signatures are distinctive. Engine strain leaves a fingerprint. Hull vibration patterns vary from boat to boat. That data is valuable. 6:16. Contact depth 500 feet. The Atlantic starts to swallow the signal. Confidence drops again. The Seahawk crew, now back aboard Gravely, begins downloading electro-optical footage. The brief periscope breach is there in high resolution. Mast silhouette, wake distortion, angle relative to the carrier's bow. Time-stamped, archived, a legal record, an operational record, a strategic record. 6:18. Range 10 nautical miles. Speed steady at 9 knots. The Russian submarine has shifted from maneuvering to transit. It is leaving the strike group's immediate envelope. No radio exchange took place. No bridge-to-bridge call. No diplomatic signal. Everything that needed to be communicated had already been said through speed, heading, and distance. 6:20. Contact depth 600 feet. Gravely's passive array stretches to maintain the track. The commanding officer reviews the tactical replay almost in real time. The critical window, 14 minutes from the first flank acceleration to the breakaway, is examined frame by frame. There was a moment at less than 1 nautical mile CPA, when the margin was thinner than most people will ever fully grasp. No launch sound, no emergency helm order, just steel, pressure, and restraint. 6:23, range 12 nautical miles. The contact is fading beyond high confidence classification. Last reliable bearing, 105. No one orders extended reacquisition outside mission parameters. The strike group stays on assigned course. 6:25. Contact lost. The sonar display clears. Background ocean noise fills the spectrum again. Shipping lanes remain open. Air wing tempo returns to its normal rhythm. Radar screens show routine traffic, but the record remains. A $43 million Russian submarine made a high-speed approach inside engagement range of a United States aircraft carrier, close to under 1 nautical mile, and then disengaged. 6:28. Inside CIC, posture eases from heightened readiness back to standard watch rotation. Not relaxed, not celebratory, professional. Because what happened was not random, it was a test. The Russian commander measured reaction time, formation geometry, and response thresholds. The United States Navy measured him right back. Every acoustic spike, every battery strain, every hesitation before the turnaway. 6:30. The Atlantic looks unchanged. From satellite altitude, the strike group is only a cluster of gray hulls moving through blue water. No smoke, no wreckage, no headlines, but beneath the surface, one of the quietest forms of naval confrontation has just unfolded. No missiles, no torpedoes. Control held, 6:35 local time. The Atlantic is calm again. Flight operations aboard USS George H.W. Bush run at full tempo. FA-18S launch in sequence. Arresting cables snap tight and recoil. Deck crews signal with fast, precise motions. To anyone looking from the outside, nothing suggests that less than an hour earlier, a Russian submarine had pushed directly into close engagement range. Inside CIC, the replay runs in silence. Flank acceleration, depth climb, intercept geometry, breakaway at 0.9 nautical miles. Every second preserved, 640. Aboard USS Gravely, acoustic specialists isolate the most valuable segment of all, the submarine's cavitation signature at 25 knots. High-speed acoustic fingerprints are rare. Most submarines work hard not to expose them, but that short sprint produced a clean profile. Blade harmonics cataloged, turbine strain patterns identified, hull resonance captured. The next time that signature appears anywhere in the Atlantic, it will not be a mystery. 6:45. There was no collision, no warning flare, no sudden evasive turn. The carrier never did more than make minor course corrections. The destroyer never released a torpedo. The Seahawk never deployed weapons. Restraint is not hesitation. It is discipline under pressure. The Russian commander approached to a distance where a modern heavyweight torpedo could have reached target in under 3 minutes. He held speed, he held heading, he climbed to periscope depth, and then he turned away. 6:50. On Bush's bridge, the captain reviews the final tactical log. No commentary, no visible emotion, just confirmation. The strike group maintained formation integrity. That is the result that matters. At sea, posture matters more than volume. A ship that panics distorts geometry too fast. A ship that overreacts creates escalation. The strike group did neither. 700. Intelligence traffic moves quietly through encrypted channels. Acoustic data is sent to fleet analysis centers. Patterns are compared against earlier North Atlantic encounters. This is the unseen side of maritime confrontation. The exchange is not only about who acted, it is about who learned. 7:05. The Russian submarine never crossed the final threshold. It entered engagement range. It corrected its firing geometry. It tested reaction timing. Then it disengaged. Why? Because the geometry did not favor escalation. Because the carrier did not yield. Because Gravely's active sonar had already made invisibility impossible. Because once you sprint at flank speed toward a U.S. carrier, nobody can call it accidental. 7:10. The Atlantic absorbs everything. The surface looks calm. Beneath it, silence returns. But the message remains. A $43 million submarine accelerated directly toward one of the most protected naval assets in the world. And the carrier never flinched. 7:15. Professional navies understand unspoken lines. 1 nautical mile is not just a number, it is intimate, it is deliberate. It is the kind of distance that forces decisions in seconds. For 13 minutes, both commanders balanced risk. Neither moved too soon. Only one chose to turn away. 7:20. There is no press conference, no public warning, no diplomatic spectacle, just a line in an operational log. Russian submarine executed high-speed intercept approach, disengaged prior to engagement threshold. That is how modern naval standoffs often end, quietly. 7:25. The strike group continues on mission. Radar sweeps outward, sonar arrays keep listening. Aircraft cycle overhead, routine returns. But the next time a similar acoustic trace rises on a sonar waterfall, it will not be unknown. It will be recognized, cataloged, anticipated. Because control at sea is not always about firepower. Very often, it is about composure. The Russian submarine tested proximity. The United States Navy demonstrated stability. No explosions, no wreckage, just steel, distance, and decisions measured in fractions of a mile. Out here, escalation does not begin with noise. It begins with geometry. And on this morning in the North Atlantic, geometry held.